My name is Ginny, also known as 2/3 Lotus, everywhere on the internet. This clip is part of my series, The Poets of Twitch, where I analyze my viewers' writing live on stream. Nothing has been edited out, so you're seeing this exactly as streamed with all of the imperfections and tangents that come with being live. If you want to catch me live or want more information, check out the description. Otherwise, enjoy some excellent writing.
Here is Labor by I, Mr. Penguinoman. We're going to have to do some translation fairly quickly. Omnia vincit amor. Mi amor. Your presence is the sunburst in my dimmed veins. You're the opioid numbing my brains. You scatter molten gold on the ruins of my spine, a spine splintered from cradling love too divine. Mi solis! I orbit you like a satellite drunk on devotion, dizzy in the centrifuge of your infinite warmth. You're the forge where time forgets itself, an ember that outlasts immortality. Mi onus. Even suns surrender to entropy. Your sunburst seeps venom through my veins. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid. Your lips decay like dead leaves. You bite my teeth and wrench my tongue out, digest my flesh till I'm bone and gone. Is this a vinegar moon phase? What beast have I worshipped in your name? Mi vida, you are no pitcher plant. You were a lotus abandoned on dry earth, thirsting for the sweat of toil, craving for labor to lift us out of the mud that whispers surrender. Mi labor. Break my spine with your labor pains. To love is to commit to being a better person. To love is a verb, not a noun. Love is labor. Labor omnia vincit. Labor by I, Mr. Penguinoman. I think I finally found the central theme of my story. Excellent and welcome in Flower Heart. This is an interesting poem. Let's translate these lines before we read it again. So, omnia, that means like all or everything. Omnia, that's a note, it's okay. Omnia, Latin, not Omnia Light Club, Night Club in Las Vegas. Complete, so like opera omnia is the complete works. Completion, okay. Vincit amor. Win. So omnia vincit amor. Love conquers all. I see. Love conquers all. My love, solis. Is that sun? Bruh. Sun. Onus, that's purpose, right? Onus. Latin. Responsibility, purpose. Burden. Interesting. Vida, life, and then labor. Ah, so then that's labor conquers all, or work. Okay. So, love conquers all. Love, sun, responsibility, burden, purpose, vida, life, and then I guess labor, just to check. Work, hardship. Yeah. What was the last part of this? It was labor omnia. Labor. Okay. Oh, this is used by someone. Work conquers all. From Virgil's Georgics. Poem written in support of Augustus Caesar's back to the land policy, urging more Romans to become farmers. Sick. Work conquers all. Okay. Back to the poem. So same. I thought onus is hardship. No, it's like responsibility and burden. We think about, and like it even, because we use the word in English as well. The onus is yours. The responsibility, the burden. So, that's our little bit of translation. And here's the poem again. Labor by Penguinoman. Omnia vincit amor. Mi amor, your presence is the sunburst in my dimmed veins. You're the opioid numbing my brains. You scatter molten gold on the ruins of my spine, a spine splintered from cradling love to divine. Mi solis. I orbit you like a satellite drunk on devotion. Dizzy in the centrifuge of your infinite warmth, you are the forge where time forgets itself, an ember that outlasts immortality. Mi onus, even suns surrender to entropy. Your sunburst seeps venom through my veins. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid, your lips decay like dead leaves. You bite my teeth and wrench my tongue out. Digest my flesh till I'm bone and gone. Is this a vinegar moon phase? What beast have I worshipped in your name? Mi vida, you are no pitcher plant. You were a lotus abandoned on dry earth, thirsting for the sweat of toil, craving for labor to lift us out of the mud that whispers surrender. Mi labor, break my spine with your labor pains. To love is to commit to being a better person. To love is a verb, not a noun. Love is labor. Labor omnia vincit. Labor. To commit to love. To love is to commit to being a better person. This I agree with. So, there's a few things going throughout this poem. we have the sun. So we have these like sun. Let's use another color. Sorry, not all the colors are available on this color of background. So we have the sun. And this is like, well, it's also like all these cosmic things, the satellite, the centrifuge, all of this, entropy, suns. But there are a few different kind of stories to follow here, right? The sun, and then we have the plant as well. Let's not do the P like that. The plant. And there is the labor through line. And those are the main ones. There's like also the drug-like nature, but I think this fits with the pitcher plant in general, thematically. So I'm not going to have that one separate as like these big overarching ideas. The sun. What is the sun, y'all? What does the sun mean? What does the sun do? Tell me qualities of the sun. Kind of saw it as an abusive relationship or one where one person needs a lot of care from one another. I feel some aspect of that. Big gravity boy. Yes, that is the sun. Big gravity. We'll underline gravity here. Anything else about the sun? This is not a trick question. Like, the sun is warm. That's the sun. What else? Tell me about the sun, y'all. Anything. Colors, feelings, associations. Life. Yes. The sun has a life to it, that light, that warmth. Light. Burns. Yeah, it can burn. And in that same way as Imrpenguinoman said, too much can be bad. It's in the center of our solar system. That's important. Central. So there's like this stuff with things orbiting it. Day and light, yeah. Day. Okay. Anything else we associate with the sun? Anyone? Dumb things. Wise things. It's yellow. It is yellow. I write this because sometimes it's very useful to just write down colors. Sometimes we find associations. Seasons. Seasons. Skin cancer. Skin cancer. Old. Male. Yes. There's a masculine association with the sun often. Leadership. You said sun is life, poet of Dole. Yes, another vote for life. Okay. That seems like enough. Good. The pitcher plant is a little bit more specific, I would say, as a metaphor. Why do I keep writing the P, not cursive? Pitcher plant. This is that plant that kind of, it like, here's like the stem, and then it's got this, basically pitcher shape. And then there's like a top flap here. And then it's also more colorful than this. There's like pink and like some oranges and reds. This is the pitcher plant. And a bug comes crawling in. A little bug. And when it falls in to the thing, this closes and the bug gets eaten. It's a carnivorous plant. Yes, the anglerfish of plants. Stylish fell. Oh, and you had one more for the sun, which was drought, and that's the wrong color. But we have this sort of, well, it's carnivorous deception, similar to the anglerfish, where the anglerfish is this weird spiky boy fish that lives in the ocean, chilling, has a big old mouth, and it's the one with the light on the front. It's a great anglerfish. And then things see the light, lures them in, and then the fish gets to eat them. Same with the pitcher plant. This is all like sweet, the pitcher fluid. So the bug smells it and it's like, ooh, about to take a bite of that. And then and then it goes in. Bro looks like he's seen better days. Well, they're like definitely like kind of lumpy and like spiky. So, but yeah, he has a tail as well. Bro has seen better days. Wait. Okay. Now he's an eye. So there's this deception. There is a sort of this like sweetness with like the sort of drawback. And that's why I sort of associate it within the context of the poem as like the opioid, or like, you know, molten gold, something that hurts but is like theoretically of value, like the sweet liquid that then, you know, kills you. Kisses drip like pitcher fluid, that's this. Lips decay like dead leaves. So this is like something kind of beautiful, but then that is actually not so much. And the direct mention of the pitcher plant again. They look like they spent 30 years sunbathing and smoking Marlboros. Seems like the type of dude to feed his pet bird. This guy? Probably. You'll go to sleep soon, Poet of the Dole. It's pretty early with the current sleep schedule. Have a nice time. Yeah, have an excellent sleep and be well, Poet of the Dole. Glad you stopped in. You bite my teeth is such a horrific image. I know, it's so... especially if you start to think about like, crunching. If they start breaking, like that's not a good image at all. Yeah. Then we have labor. So we have the labor as, you know, the work, the actual work, like this kind, the toil in the soil, whatever. This is like the labor. But then we also have the things related to the labor pains. So it's this sort of double meaning. And we even bring it back up here. We have like ruins of my spine. Sun surrenders venom in my veins. Yeah, so it's sort of like at the start and the end. That is a little bit of this labor. Your spine, or a spine splintered, from cradling love to divine. So this very much feels like the labor. And then throughout the middle, is this, a lot of the sun stuff here. Sort of like the dizzying, being pulled in with the gravity. Kind of resembles the feeling of the pitcher plant. And then we have mi solis. Mi onus would very much be akin to the labor. Mi amor, just love. Mi vida, a bit like the sun as well. But also like a plant, perhaps. And the sun, dry earth, sweat, that kind of stuff. The sun is in these lines. This is all sort of pitcher plant-like. And the sunburst. So these three as categories pretty much cover the entire poem. So it seems like a pretty decent way to organize what's going on here. The idea of the spine also points toward a love that takes too great a toll. Oh, exactly. Yes. Spine's the load carries the body, like the straw that broke the camel's back. Yes. And that really shows a sort of, like, the spine is very connected to just like the self as the whole. It's sort of the center of things between like nerves and support and balance and everything. If your spine is messed up, it can cause pain all the way down to your feet, right? So, and that really indicates like a sacrifice not just of health, but of oneself as a whole. So that's pretty cool. Nico, hello, welcome. I'm leaving the house tonight. I'm going to Verna. I'm reading at the open mic thing, probably, if I can. Kind of stoked. Yeah, it's okay. Oh, and then Omnia Vincent Amor. Love conquers all, and work conquers all. So, now we can talk about what all these things mean in general. We were rioting. Maybe, I don't know. Stash fail, if I made you a mod, would you dislike that? Or would you like to, if you like, you've been around long enough that I'll make you a mod. It's just like, if you don't want to be a mod, then you don't have to be a mod. You wouldn't mind? Okay, I'll mod you. That's good. /mod. Hit my mic. At stylish fail. Now we have 2 mods. New power. Start banning people. Look at that sword. So many badges. Yeah, in case there's any spammers or baddies. Exactly. You only abuse your powers for good. Good. So, yeah, I guess that's like the first big categories of this poem, and some looks at meaning, because that's important. But I think I also want to make sure, I said this last stream going forward, that we look at, dude, I love that anglerfish, not just meaning, but also sound, and also structure. So far as I see it, this is the sort of holy trinity, or the 3 fundamental forces to be unified under a grand theory of poetry. Meaning, sound, and structure. And we'll talk more about meaning, yes, because I only like outlined some stuff, some metaphors. Then we also want to talk about sound and structure. First, I'm going to take a quick little break run this ad, do some self-care, you all, and I will be back shortly. I have to fill up my empty water jug. Okay. Welcome back. I am still Ginny, still the poet of Twitch and 2/3 Lotus. Penguinoman. Admittedly, only the first was made to be sounded out. The rest. So this was the. Because it has like the rhyme and stuff, and then it sort of just goes elsewhere into more metaphor and meaning based stuff. That could be one issue if you don't feel like it's very strong as a poem. But here it is again. Labor by Imrpenguinoman. Omnia vincit amor. Mi amor, your presence is the sun burst in my dimmed veins. You're the opioid numbing my brains. You scatter molten gold on the ruins of my spine, a spine splintered from cradling love to divine. Mi solis, I orbit you like a satellite drunk on devotion, dizzy in the centrifuge of your infinite warmth. You are the forge where time forgets itself, an ember that outlasts immortality. Mi onus, even suns surrender to entropy. Your sunburst seeps venom through my veins. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid. Your lips decay like dead leaves. You bite my teeth and wrench my tongue out, digest my flesh till I'm bone and gone. Is this a vinegar moon phase? What beast have I worshipped in your name? Mi vida, you are no pitcher plant. You were a lotus abandoned on dry earth, thirsting for sweat and toil, craving for labor to lift us out of the mud that whispers surrender. Mi labor, break my spine with your labor pains. To love is to commit to being a better person. To love is a verb, not a noun. Love is labor. Labor omnia vincit. By Nico. Labor by Imrpenguinoman. Maybe it should be? Should be to love is to labor. To love is to commit, to love is a verb, to love is labor. Maybe. There are some cool sound things happening, even though you maybe didn't intend it after the first line, as you said. But before we get to that, meaning. So your presence is the sunburst in my dimmed veins. So immediately we have this person, veins, the things that carry life within us, sort of dulled, just like less weak. And also the veins, interestingly, carry blood from none other than the heart. So, dimmed veins may have a sort of, or they carry blood back to the heart. Arteries go out. So, you're the opioid numbing my brains. So opioid kind of connects to the veins, it also connects to love, dimmed, the sunburst. This all like nests into each other very nicely. And now we have something different. I mean, so the sunburst, something very bright against something dim. An opioid, something bright in a sense, euphoric, but immediately pointed out that while it feels good, it is fundamentally numbing. It is bad. You scatter molten gold on the ruins of my spine. So, gold, again, associated with the sun. And molten gold, hot, it's very, very interconnected. I think this stanza between the gold, the sunburst, the veins, the opioid, the brains, whatever. Shouldn't brains be similar? Or singular? Very nitpicky? I don't think it has to be. If you end your own life with a bullet to the skull, you're blowing your brains out. You're not blowing your brain out. Well, you can blow your brain out, but people say blow your brains out. I don't think it matters. We have a left and right brain. That's true. I mean, we talk about someone having brains, or, I think it's fine. You scatter molten gold. So, on the skin, of course, this is going to be very, hot and painful. This is probably, in a sense, pointing toward the sun being too bright. And I think in alchemy, to do one metaphor, which is sometimes used, alchemy, sun. The sun is that symbol, and it's also gold / sun. So they are connected in various ways. Gold and masculine, the king. We talked about all of this in our looking at some of the symbols that the sun might represent. Alchemy encompasses a lot of the Western things. It's interesting because alchemy kind of pulls from biblical stuff. It pulls from Greek stuff in some case, which actually makes alchemy a great place, if you know it, to get a really good sampling of like symbolic meaning across literature, at least Western literature, which is cool. A spine splintered from cradling love to divine. Gold is also valuable. It's like valuable, it's good, but it's painful. Just like the opiate. Well, the opiate's maybe not good. It feels good. This doesn't feel good, but has value. Slightly like different inversions of each other, but it speaks to the same point. A spine splintered from cradling love to divine. And this is like pretty awesome when we look at it connecting to like the first line of the last stanza. There is a very nice symmetry to that, which I do appreciate. Last line of first, first line of last is good. The molten gold reminds me of Crassus's death. Crassus? Who is Crassus? Roman general. Death. He was part of the first triumvirate of Caesar. The Jeff Bezos of Rome got captured by an enemy army, got molten gold poured into his mouth. Oh my god, that's awful. Oh yeah, poured molten gold into his mouth to mock his thirst for wealth. Oh, that's brutal. So, spine splintered from cradling too much love. And of course, we can think about the literal labor, the weight of carrying another. Sorry. So that's maybe something to write down. The weight of another. This is maybe a big theme, sort of thesis-like line in this poem. I would love to do that to a billionaire. I personally don't think I could stomach it. the action, or the gold, I suppose. Mi solis, I orbit you like a satellite drunk on devotion. So we have another sort of reference to substance with the opioid. And then also devotion, the sun, orbit, the sun, gravity. There's this lack of control happening. There's not really a way to break this orbit. And it is, yeah, it's drunk. It is sort of harming oneself. It is out of one's control. It is maybe misguided. Dizzy in the centrifuge of your infinite warmth. So we're really outlining this very interesting paradox of having a great degree of warmth, great degree of love, a love to divine, but then like some sort of bad side to it, a drawback. You are the ford where time forgets itself, an ember that outlasts immortality. Always there, inescapable. I like time forgets itself. This could sort of speak to, again, losing oneself, losing a sense of time, losing one's way amongst this other person. And it lasts, and thus you kind of can't escape it. But, me onus, even suns surrender to entropy. So now we look to the bad side, maybe. And this is interesting, right? An ember that outlasts immortality. We get this immediate tension, contradiction even, between immortality and then ending to entropy. Outlast immortality is longer than forever, yet this suggests that entropy still wins. Even suns surrender to entropy. Your sunburst seeps venom through my veins. So now it's taken on this kind of dark association. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid. So then this is the sort of trap, like me. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid, your lips decay like dead leaves. Bad love. Bite my teeth and wrench my tongue out. So then we're getting into causing physical, actual damage and pain directly. Bite my teeth, wrench my tongue out, digest my flesh till I'm bone and gone. Which also maybe just speaks to the wearing down of our subject. Penguin, check out how the Dutch show their displeasure for our Prime Minister, Johan de Witt. My favorite is the Australian PM who got lost going for a swim. A swimming pool named after him. That's great. I'm not going to look up Johan de Witt, but someone can enlighten me. So, is this a vinegar moon phase? I don't think this is an actual thing. Oh, is this a pun? There's no like vinegar moon, but there's vinegaroon. Wait, it's a bug. That's got to be a pun, right? These guys are scary. Oh, whip scorpions. I've seen these guys. Where are they from? All over the place. Honeymoon, vinegar. Okay, I see. Honeymoon phase. That makes sense. Honeymoon. That makes sense. Acid as opposed to sweet. Acid. You have the acid versus the sweetness of the sun. It's kind of a good pun too, though. Like, but if you had mentioned whip scorpions elsewhere in the poem, what's a disgusting liquid? Yeah. There's no open mic? Yeah, there is. There's the showcase thing, and it does have an open mic. It's just that there's a bunch of people showcased, and it's also open for, like, in between. No, it's... Yeah. At least as far as I've heard. So, vinegar moon, honeymoon phase. Still good either way. It's smart. What beast have I worshipped in your name? So then, I like this. There's almost these like two sides, which we've established over here in opposition to each other. Mi vida, you are no pitcher plant. We. Wait, it says we? I feel like I didn't notice that before. We were a lotus abandoned on dry earth. So, you were no pitcher plant. You were just like this person who has been kind of hurt, abandoned, whatever. True, perhaps. We were lotus, perfection, enlightenment, life, all that stuff. Abandoned on dry earth, thirsting for the sweat of toil. Craving for labor to lift us out of the mud that whispers surrender. So, this is an interesting line that I kind of have to think on. It's formal. What's formal? Snaps is all ages cool. I like all the little vignettes. Yeah, it does feel like there's all these little mini stories happening. So, I mean, there's this connection here. The earth, working it, toil, lifting out of the mud, abandoned, dry, the sun, the sweat, whatever. I like this. So thirsting for the sweat of toil, a sort of liquid happening here. But of course one that's also maybe not fulfilling in this case. And so we hope for labor, but I mean, like, working, labor, toiling on dry, broken earth, I think this is to say, does not necessarily yield life. We were this, we tried, and has not happened. The lotus metaphor also implies it is not the fault of the lover per se. It is what they need. Wait, hold on, who made this one? Penguinoman. Formal. Okay, gotcha. I like the progression of love deteriorating in the poem. I mean, yeah, it's like pretty bad at the start, but it does get worse and worse and worse. But I mean, to a point, we start with a splintered spine, we end with a splintered spine. I think it's all looking back on it. That's just sort of retelling this story. It is their nature to need the sweat of toil. It is not something done out of malice. I think, yeah, maybe. Break my spine with your labor pains. Love is to commit to being a better person. Love is labor. It is, though, love that has, like, hurt them. This is, like, so me. I relate to this deeply. Like, I do like these lines. And so, like, you got me remembering my bad relationships, Penguinoman. You got me feeling things, so that's good. Yeah, I mean, like, this is a great description. The pain and the potential tragic fruitlessness of labor. This makes the pitcher plant kind of great. I mean, I don't know if pitcher plants have fruits, but we don't think of them as plants with fruits, which makes it like a great little description here. Oop, I apologize. No, it is a good thing. Labor omnia vincit. Labor conquers all, love conquers all. It's like a cool connection that you use here. So I mean, yeah, there's like a toxic nature to this love, of course. This trying to be better, things getting worse, and staying stuck in orbit. Uh, all of that, whatever. It's interesting. Let you know if I'm coming to snaps. I'll look at when it is. Uh, we'll see. I might. I might decide last minute. Oh, $5 to get on the mic? Nope. Absolutely not. Hell no. No, no, no. So to this poem, meaning wise, I think, I mean, that's like some of my thoughts. Uh, I mean, like, maybe I might be there, Nico, but like, we'll see. I don't know. Money is bad. Uh, this poem. I mean, yeah, like, I mean, so the funny thing is, you say Penguinoman, like, this is your attempt at like a love poem. uh, and I think this is like pretty cool. uh, I'm not sure if. Okay, well, here's the thing. It doesn't feel like your regular love poem because this isn't a sort of idealized love. And I think when we think of love poems, we think of idealization. Uh, like deep beauty and sonnets and whatever. Uh, so, like, yeah. What did you say? Not really sure how to improve this. It was my take on a love poem. So, maybe the first thing is to. This poem was supposed to be a sonnet before, but like now that's too difficult. Fair enough. So, yeah, like we think of, I mean, that really makes sense, you know? It was supposed to be a sonnet, and it was a sonnet that crumbled, a failed sonnet about kind of failed love. I mean, like, in a sense, like, none of this feels like love. There is truth in this, like, there is labor in love. Love is labor. Love is changing yourself, committing, becoming a better person for and alongside another person. Uh, in some cases, carrying their weights or helping carry their weights, whatever. Like that's love. Uh, but what is described is not love. This is like like a bad relationship poem, sort of. Whatever. so I think one thing is to you can look at okay, we've abandoned sonnet, we've abandoned love poem, and maybe just reframing the poem itself in your head might help as like yeah, this isn't really a love poem anymore. And I mean, the poem is called Labor. Of course, love is labor. I like the implied saying labor of love. But the funny thing is it's like the inversion of this. It's not a labor of love. It is labor for love. It is the love of labor. It is there is no end to this. There is no fruit of the labor. Which kind of makes it maybe a complete inversion of the love poem. The love poem in itself is sort of a cliche, which is good. It means you've sort of subverted cliche as a whole. But, and like otherwise, my emo ass couldn't write a happy love poem. Oh, I mean, I feel that. It's hard. So there's that. I just want to talk about the sound of this poem as well. Omnia vincit amor, mi amor. Your presence is the sunburst in my dimmed veins. You're the opiate numbing my brains. You scatter molten gold on the ruins of my spine, a spine splintered from cradling love to divine. So you have like this obvious rhyme scheme. I think it's actually very possibly like, oh wait, no, it's AABB. AABB. Okay. It's kind of like, so this is maybe sound tying into meaning. We start with a measured, not measured, but we have rhyme, we have a sort of structure, and then it pretty much immediately breaks down, which is cool. It shows, it even shows some of that, like trying, but then just a pouring forth of all the less bad things. And presence is the sunburst in my dimmed veins. You're the opioid numbing my brains. You scatter molten gold on the ruins of my spine. A spine splintered. Some alliteration there. You have like some alliteration. I do like the sound of it in this poem. What do I think of the phrase, I love you far away, fear you close by? We read a poem on stream translated by Solina just a few streams ago. This is Umiti Sarogas Khan, The Call of Darkness, translated by them. I never wanted to be like this. I should have either been so close to you or so far away. It should have been obstacles between us. Your beauty resembles underground rivers. I know you are as beautiful as a secret. I liked this poem. I have thoughts on the phrase myself. Like, I don't necessarily believe in loving from far away, because I actually sort of agree in some case with like the labor aspect of love. But this poem absolutely reflects it, especially when we think of the sun as something distant and large and cosmic, which we can appreciate. And then the plant as close, sucks you in, you get too close, you get pulled in, right? So I guess that's a good, important meaning that I didn't overtly mention yet. Yes. That's a good connection with the sun. I like that. I like it for this poem, definitely. So in terms of sound, I orbit you like a satellite, drunk on devotion, dizzy, in the centrifuge of your infinite warmth. You are the forge. Forge, fuge, warmth. There's like centrifuge of your infinite warmth. You are the forge where time forgets itself. We have some really nice like language happening. So like warmth and forge connects, and then forge and fuge, and forget and forge. They're all very similar. An ember that outlasts immortality. Even like immortality itself, infinite. So I like it, and it gives this section of drunkenness a sort of spiraling feel. I always find that any kind of alliteration, any kind of sort of sonic continuity and connection is going to create momentum. I orbit you like a satellite drunk on devotion, dizzy in the centrifuge of your infinite warmth. You are the forge where time forgets itself, an ember that outlasts immortality. So, like, it's effective because it's also communicating this meaning of this, like, spiral. So that's good. And then even suns surrender to entropy. Your sunburst seeps venom through my veins. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid. So sun, surrender, sun seeps, veins, kisses. Sort of continues into lips, leaves. And suns surrender to entropy. Your sunburst seeps venom through my veins, venom veins. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid. Your lips decay like dead leaves, decay dead. Fluid. You bite my teeth and wrench my tongue out. Digest my flesh till I'm bone and gone. Is this a vinegar moon phase? What beast have I worshipped in your name? And this really, like, so there's not a lot of that happening here. It kind of loses that momentum in reading. It's very easy to go through even suns surrender to entropy. Your sunburst seeps venom through my veins. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid. Your lips decay like dead leaves. You bite my teeth and wrench my tongue out. Digest my flesh till I'm bone and gone. Is this a vinegar moon phase? What beast have I worshipped in your name? Which really makes this realization at the end of the stanza all the more powerful, because instead of continuing this like spiral along into it, we like stop, and it feels like taking a moment to actually consider and think. So with this being more sparsely connected, at least sonically, it gives it a nice conclusive feeling. Mi vida. You are no, and also like onus, burden, kind of feels as though this stanza is weighing down as we go on. And even maybe the whole poem. You are no pitcher plant. We were a lotus abandoned on dry earth, thirsting for the sweat of toil, craving the labor to lift us out of the mud that whispers surrender. We have a few things: pitcher plant, labor to lift. We want the labor to lift us here, and the sound wants it to get momentum, and then out of the mud that whispers surrender. Mi labor. I'm starting to think of this as very pained. Break my spine with your labor pains. To love is to commit to being a better person. To love is a verb, not a noun. Love is labor. I find when we have a lot of these similar sort of short conjunctive words, to love is to commit to being, it tends to slow down the reading, right? Because it's hard to say to love is to commit to being. It's difficult, and these are also like very sharp sounds, so they make us want to stop. So we have this beginning that starts with some strong rhymes and then goes into the spiraling into just being very slow. And then a final proclamation, almost militant maybe, labor omnia vincit. I wonder in that case if there could be more momentum going on right at the start. Like, have this be even more clear as like a downward slope, because the start has less going on sound-wise than this stanza. And if we wanted to show a complete just like down the whole time, it could be good to start with more like potential energy up here basically at the top. Now, of course, it's fine if it looks sort of like, this, where we start with some, and then it picks up a little bit into mi solis, and then comes crashing down. I think that's okay. There's almost a melody in my brain that I read this out in my mind. I think it's just that the idea of the poem, that I think it's just that idea that a poem is best read by the person that wrote it thingy. Yeah, and I can only ever approximate the sound, but the text informs the sound. Literally just by looking at things like alliteration. I just alliterated literally like looking alliteration. And that can give even the reader who will not hear your performance a insight into what you're thinking with momentum and flow. Because it's not even so much that it forces momentum, but when we see drunk on devotion, dizzy, these things flow together, and there's flow, and then there's like sort of more choppy, and you can tell that as a reader. Gotta pander to your audience a little, kinda. Well, not necessarily, but I think it's being intentional with your sound and knowing that there are ways to communicate meaning through that. Now, if this isn't a meaning you want to communicate through sound, then you don't have to do it. Pandering, I think, is probably not a great word to describe that. Pandering is doing something that you don't want. Now, granted, if you think this poem is perfect and you don't want to change it, that's fine. I think it's a good poem. But in the interest of change and advice, there's that. And because an audience is just missing a piece. An audience is missing your performance if they are reading this on the page, as I am. But the good thing is, as I said, is there are ways on the page to imply your performance. You can even go as far as italicizing things, bolding things. You do bold things. Mi amor, mi solis. This gives me an idea of how the poet might read this out loud and how I might hear it in my head. Admittedly, I'm reading mi amor, mi solis kind of quietly, but I do think of them as more loud and proclamatory, I mean bold exclamation points, right? Uh, Random little thing that I just noticed. The S isn't capitalized. Maybe that's intentional. You have omni avincit amor, me, oni, mi onus, mi vida, mi labor. The only thing that isn't capitalized is sun. If I'm to interpret this as intentional, then I don't know. Uh, as to pull from a traditional revelatory, or not revelatory, reverent think some people think of the sun with reverence, like a god, as we said, a king of some sort. So you could, in that way, intentionally lowercase the s to detract from the idea of like sun worship. Uh, but we'll okay. um, if you did leave it lowercase, that is where my mind would go, and it's an interesting little tidbit. But capitalized makes sense. Sounds fine by me. Yep, absolutely. So keep that, change that. Your call. That's that's digging into. That's not over analysis. This is like looking at what's there and trying to have everything be justified. So that's that. Uh, Sound. Maybe that helps you. Structure. 4 lines, 4 lines, 4 lines, 4 lines, 8 lines. Didn't someone do this in a poem, like on stream, like last week as well? Oh, it was Secret Garden. 4 lines, 4 lines, 8 lines, 4 lines. It's really funny how all these things like start to connect in my brain, and I see one thing and I'm like, oh, it's like this one. Sometimes I have to stop myself. um, so let's look at these sections. We have an 8-line section titled "My Burden." 4 lines, 4 lines for love. 4 lines for sun. 4 lines for labor and life. Which fundamentally places a greater weight on me onus, which probably does a good job of bridging us from the start, the title, labor, into the end of labor again. Sort of reminds us very, very subconsciously that this idea, this painful section, is the important part, what we're supposed to think about. So I think I like that decision. That's what that decision feels like it does. And in terms of the other ones, I mean, so we go amor, love section, sun section, burden section, life section, and then labor. Love, sun, burden, life, labor. This is our structure, with burden being like ×2 extra weight. And I mean, we start with love, and we move away from it, and we move toward labor. And even life, like life isn't necessarily a positive or negative association, it just is. And then the sun is maybe like good when we're still thinking about this person in love. So this also contributes to the sort of downward momentum in the poem, with like maybe this big hump in the middle. And I talked about this here, like breaking it off, like these 4 lines feeling different as a like realization or revelation, which makes this really feel like the halfway point. And then this is the real like downturn. So maybe we don't need to have it spiral all the way down. think of this as spiraling up and then breaking down, which maybe is a better way to look at the structure of this poem. You know, it starts a little quieter in terms of sound, and then we build up into drunk, devotion, dizzy, and then into sun, surrender, sunburst, seeps, venom, veins. Like, this is probably the most sonically dense section of your poem, which actually makes the structure not necessarily what I thought. A building up, a hope, and then a fall down. And like onus is like good and bad, right? We have responsibility and we have burden as these two things. And responsibility can be kind of good in the sense of love and care, but then burden is clearly more of a bad thing. So I think this is actually like sort of a beautiful structure to communicate the feeling of this relationship, because the whole thing is laid out with the opioid withdrawal, sun to the dimmed veins, the paradox of good and bad, going up, down, and in one description of this, the poem, we do the same thing, up and down. With even an ending point that maybe looks towards something turning up, you know, trying to continue to labor and find love and be a better person, it all just speaks to a very circular kind of feeling, which is like great because there's this idea of being trapped and this idea of then feeling good and feeling trapped. So yeah, even if it wasn't intentional, I think the structure does very well. It's very circular. It works great. And yeah, I think that means like our three sort of pillars are generally working in conjunction. The sound, along with the structure, is reinforcing the meaning. A meaning, at least. And if your sound and structure are reinforcing a meaning you don't like, then I would advise restructuring, resounding, or remeaninging. Meaninging. Think up some questions, Penguinoman. That's what I'm going to ask when I come back from a quick 2-minute ad break. Because you seem to want to improve it. That's what you said in the submission. And some questions would help me deeply. I can also think about what my favorite part is. Always a question I answer. Awesome. Hello and welcome back. I'm still Ginny. Still the poet of Twitch and 2/3 Lotus. Before jumping back in the poem, this sort of random, I feel like I'm, like, learning about analysis. Like, I obviously have been since I started doing it, but I feel like I'm finally noticing sometimes that I feel like I'm getting better at analyzing. Not necessarily that I'm more accurate. uh, that's not the goal, but that I'm like bringing in more of these ideas, uh, the pillars, the meaning, the sound, the structure, drawing more pictures. Just, I don't know. Honestly, personally, I think you've improved a lot with analysis. There's definitely more structure to your analysis. Good. um, learning as I go. Also getting better at keeping a through line. Yeah, that for sure. it could get wild sometimes. Also seem to pick up on more. Yeah, I mean, they get longer. I think you're way more open minded. This is crazy. Like, I haven't even realized these things. This is crazy. So, reading the poem through once. Labor by Penguinoman. Omnia vincit amor, mi amor. Your presence is the sunburst in my dimmed veins. You're the opioid numbing my brains. You scatter molten gold on the ruins of my spine, a spine splintered from cradling love too divine. Mi solis, I orbit you like a satellite drunk on devotion, dizzy in the centrifuge of your infinite warmth. You are the forge where time forgets itself, an ember that outlasts immortality. No, sonically this is so good. Mi onis. Even suns surrender to entropy. Your sunburst seeps venom through my veins. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid. Your lips decay like dead leaves. You bite my teeth and wrench my tongue out. Digest my flesh till I'm bone and gone. Is this a vinegar moon phase? What beast have I worshipped in your name? Mi vida, you are no pitcher plant. We were a lotus abandoned on dry earth, thirsting for sweat, for the sweat of toil, craving for labor to lift us out of the mud that whispers surrender. Mi labor, break my spine with your labor pains. To love is to commit to being a better person. To love is a verb, not a noun. Love is labor. Labor omnia vincit. Oh, okay. Recognizing the structure, at least my perceived structure, having a structure helps so much with the reading of the poem. Also, Labor by Penguinoman. It direction. Do this in your own poems, y'all. Have direction. Know where you're going and where you're ending. This helps. It's more fun too. Hey, hype. Can tell you're more comfortable talking to a camera. A little bit. I still struggle sometimes, but we are way better than at first for sure. Your poems are always fascinating. Oh yeah. So you have some questions before I derailed to talk about myself. Did the imagery in the poem evoke like emotions, or did it feel redundant or overwhelming? Issue okay, yeah, my sort of a previous issue. It does break down toward the end. Yeah, but it's like emotionally, not like in a bad way. Uh, so, um, so basically the question of repetition. Here's a law for you all. You know, when I go to like a full new clean page, I'm going to try to say it in a minute and have it be in a YouTube clip. So, repetition. You ask, does it feel too repetitive? And this is a good question. When is something too repetitive? And they ask, why do you repeat? So we're repeating something generally because adding it another time, adding another is going to add value, I think. We can repeat something if we have it once. It's good. If we repeat it again, maybe it adds something to our poem. If we repeat it a third, fourth, fifth time, this can help. But it's as soon as we stop getting value, getting something better, maybe it's that sixth time that when we add that, it doesn't feel like it changes or impacts the reader anymore, or the poet writing it. So I guess maybe like the law of repetition would just be don't add a repeat if it's not going to add to your poem. So in this case, well, what are the repetitive themes? I mean, I like really... Right. Even this, repetitive themes. Like you say, Sashville, if you repeat enough, it's a theme. And I immediately found the sun, the plant, and labor. And this is obviously super helpful because it is only because they were repeated that I found these things so easily. Without the repetition, I don't find them as quick. And then the question is, are there instances of this repetition that stop helping us? So we can look at the sun. Your sunburst in my dimmed veins. Opioid numbing my brains. You scatter molten gold. This is all fine. And then we have like gold, which is like a near sun kind of imagery. So it's not even like a bad repetition. Orbit. Orbit is going to add a meaning to our sun. That feeling of like their centralness, right? So maybe let's put these somewhere. Let's put them above because I have space. So we have just saying sun. Actually, the first one was sunburst. And this is going to give us light. This is going to give us warmth. Good. These are new. Then we have gold, maybe, which gives us like power, value, something potentially, but it's like not a super strong connection. Then we have orbit. So this gives us something new. Like you said, big gravity boy, inescapable. So this is good. That adds a meaning to our sun. And then even devotion kind of goes with this, but it's different. Right? Devotion and orbit are similar. This is like a constant attention, and this is a constant proximity. But these are very different words, and we don't think of them as like repetitive in what they're saying. And then centrifuge. This is, fairly, I would say it's a fairly repetitive take on the orbit, but fuge goes great when you say, in the centrifuge of your infinite warmth, you are a forge where time forgets itself. So this has sonic value, no reason to take that away. Your infinite warmth is like also just fine. Like, I don't think these are now adding meaning, but these are adding sound. Warmth goes great with forget. Your infinite warmth, you are the forge where time forgets itself. Immortality. And you need a sort of density of stuff like this. And it's probably better than using some random word that doesn't really help your meaning here, because warmth is just reinforcing the sun. I don't feel like the sun is tired at this point. Even suns surrender to entropy. So sure, it's just repeating sun, but this is probably taking us in a new meaning direction. One thing that I wasn't a super fan of was using sunburst here again. I just think, obviously, so it does something good and something bad, right? It shows what was good now turning bad. And there's some value there. But the issue is then we have sun and sun repeated very quickly, and it just feels kind of like this is a probably bad sound move. We talk about it sounds bad to use like the same word twice, like within two sentences. That's that. And meaning wise, it does something okay, but I think describing the sunburst in a different way would still provide this meaning of the sun changing from good to bad, especially when we have veins. Like sunburst and veins, it's maybe too obvious, the connection from top to bottom. We could keep veins and just change sunburst. It could just be your rays seep venom through my veins. It's a near rhyme there. There's lots of ways we could describe sun, but I find this one like not helpful. And then otherwise, we go to dry earth and sweat, which give us a sun connection, but nothing too much. So if anything, sun is overused with one word, which is not overused at all. Like, it's not something that pulled me out of the poem. Let's talk about the plant, the opiate, the luring in. We have something helpful where we have multiple ideas. The pitcher plant and the opiate and the drunk and the drug and the whatever and the dizziness. These all point toward an idea, but they're not the same words. It's almost like they are collectively symbols toward one idea instead of one symbol for multiple ideas. And this is probably always going to feel less repetitive. And let me try to draw what I just said. Sun tells us a lot of things in this poem. Sun tells us warm, sun tells us gravity, sun tells us burn, sun tells us dry, sun tells us light, sun does all these things. But in the case of like the pitcher plant, we have like plant, and we have drug, and we have drink, and we have death or rot, decay, and these all collectively instead point toward and maybe contribute to one idea of this kind of it's just like that good thing gone bad. I can't think of like quite the word, but these are all contributing to an idea. So these don't feel repetitive to me at all. And you need a requisite number of these to feel that they actually all point toward one thing. So as far as I'm concerned, the plant stuff is good. Labor. So, ruins of my spine. A spine splintered from cradling love to divine. I mean, like, great meaning, just in terms of laying out at the beginning. Hurting, having pain from this love. But then having that pointing toward the title of labor we don't say you are labor in these two lines, but the idea of one's back breaking for a divine love is reminiscent of like mothership, that kind of labor. And then we don't really have too much of that until the middle. It pops back up. And then we have labor come back at the bottom. And we have the two meanings, like the working of the field, which is cool. And then we come back to the labor pains. And since these are far apart, I don't find the repetition to be too much of a problem. There is a sort of sonic issue, maybe, by just having labor, 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 love, love, love. But I do think you're trying to be very powerful in your communication of these ideas at the end. And, like, this feels heavy-handed just to say, to love is to commit to being a better person. Like, these kinds of meaning platitudes can be a turnoff in poetry because they say, like, here's my idea, here's my thesis. You don't need to think when you read this line. But it feels intentional, mostly because what is being said here isn't the whole story. If love really was just labor, and if labor really let you become a better person, we wouldn't be having all the problems in the rest of the poem, which makes this an interesting sort of like unreliability. And it adds a twist to just saying something so platitude, as love is labor. To love is to commit to being a better person. To love is a verb, not a noun. Some people might still find this, upon like one listen in a spoken performance, slightly almost preachy. I think that's what stuff like this can sound like. If you say love is labor, love is to commit to being a better person, there's a preachy feeling to saying these. But since there's an underlying meaning that, this all has led to ill and led to bad, it makes it less so. So, repetitive, I would say no, except for maybe those couple things that I mentioned. Maybe you think about the sound of this, but also this forces the end of the poem to be that downturn of just like slow speaking statements, which is good from my interpretation based on the poem and these cycles and the structure of this love. And otherwise it's just like the sun thing in the middle that I find a little bit awkward. Like, I noticed this very early into reading, maybe second read. I'm like, sun surrender, sunburst. Alliteration is usually like, I would say if you do alliteration and you use the same word twice within one alliterative sort of idea, this is when it starts to sound bad and like just poorly done. So that. But all of your other alliteration, very strong, good slant rhymes. Seems like it would be a blast to have written this and perform it spoken, because I probably don't even do this as well as you do. And I underlined it a lot. So that's the answer to that question. Was there another one? Do I feel like the ending leaves an impact, or was it lacking? I mean, so there is a sense to me where it lacks. It does not have, so it lacks in a way that I find consistent with the analytical meaning of this being a sort of big, strong commitment to love and being a better person, and love is labor and all this stuff, where it doesn't feel like the rest of the poem. And but it feels like the kind of toxic, oh, things fall apart, and then I say I'll do better, and then things get better, and then things fall apart. Uh, like, maybe it doesn't have to be this momentous ending. Because that's not honest to the love. But I would say, again, if I heard this once as a spoken word poem, which is another way to think about this poem being consumed, I would find the ending deeply lacking because I did not have an hour and 40 minutes or whatever we're at now to pick up on all those ideas. Written poetry and spoken poetry are deeply different. If I hear this poem once, I do not have access to all of these ideas I came to. I get to hear each of this once and bring some connections together. And I would get something from this poem, like toxic relationship, okay, but I wouldn't get quite the depth that would make an unsatisfying ending in the context of spoken word actually satisfying. It makes it a sort of catch-22 where I think if you gave the spoken word listeners a sort of powerful ending, maybe something that indicates change or improvement, what we would all hope for, the good ending, it might not work as well as a poem on the page because the meaning I have gotten, which this could be not a problem if your intended meaning is different, but I think the meaning I have communicated would break down without an ending like this. You could show it descending further into like more of a breakdown. This would probably work well in spoken word. I find that spoken word just struggles with nuance. Not that spoken word poetry or spoken word poets aren't nuanced artists, but it is the big emotional highs and lows and traumas and dramatic changes that work in spoken word because it's this fiery one-off performance. This poem, and again, like this is a guess because I don't know how you read it. Maybe you do feel like it's a satisfying conclusion if you've read this or performed it out loud. But as I read it, I feel like if I was up on a spoken word stage when I read it like I did before, some people might say, oh, the ending was a little lacking. But that's like a performative thing too. So, to answer your question definitively, it is not lacking within the poem and the text itself. In other modes of performance, it might be a little bit of a different story. A long ramble to say that. Penguinoman, any other questions? Or does anyone else have questions for me or Penguinoman based on this poem? Do I have a favorite part? Is a question I ask myself. I think it's this turn in the middle, which I talked about for some time. The realization, the pain, and then the descent. It was also this part that had me like sonically laughing. Like the most recent time I read it, after the most recent ad break, I like was grinning reading this and kind of I might have said out loud like, "Oh, that part's really good." This is the funnest part to read. This is the funnest part meaning wise. Onus is the funnest part structurally. It really benefits from taking the time to take it in. I like it. Yeah. Every poem does. Uh, this might be the paradox of analysis, that the more you analyze, the more you find, the more you like it, the more you sometimes get further away from a genuine and real interpretation. And the more you go into your just rabbit holes of thought. This is what people would call overanalysis, but I think it's fun. So, that being said, I'll read this another time, and then we'll be done with it. Long analysis. This has been Labor by Mr. Penguinoman. Omnia vincit amor. Mi amor, your presence is the sunburst in my dimmed veins. You're the opioid numbing my brains. You scatter molten gold on the ruins of my spine, as spines splintered from cradling love to divine. Mi solis, I orbit you like a satellite drunk on devotion, dizzy in the centrifuge of your infinite warmth. You are the forge where time forgets itself, an ember that outlasts immortality. Mi onis, even suns surrender to entropy. Your sunburst seeps venom through my veins. Your kisses drip pitcher fluid. Your lips decay like dead leaves. You bite my teeth and wrench my tongue out, digest my flesh till I am bone and gone. Is this a vinegar moon phase? What beast have I worshipped in your name? Mi vida, you are no pitcher plant. We were a lotus, abandoned on dry earth, thirsting for the sweat of toil, craving for labor to lift us out of the mud that whispers surrender. Mi labor, break my spine with your labor pains. To love is to commit to being a better person. To love is a verb, not a noun. Love is labor. Labor omnia vincit. Labor by Mr. Penguinoman. Such a great poem. I appreciate you sending. Thank you so much. Certainly not a love poem, but certainly not a failed poem. I really like it, and maybe that's not what you wanted to hear, because you wanted like advice, but I had some. But maybe it's reassuring. I don't know. Thank you for submitting, though. I do appreciate it. A joy to read your poems so very often. Definitely reassuring. Just know that no one else takes quite so much time to read poems as I do.
Thank you for watching. I encourage you to check out the rest of the series, follow if you enjoyed, and stop by Twitch if you want to share your own work. See you there.